Welcome to the ECE Classroom Podcast with your host, Susie Beghin, inspiring early childhood educators every day. Hello, I'm Susie Beghin, and welcome to the ECE Classroom. Today, I have a special guest here to talk to us about the classroom environment. In our first episode, we talked about the educators, which are the lifeblood of the childcare education system. So today I wanted to switch gears and go to, I think, the second most important thing related to early childhood education, and that is the actual environment. A lot of childcare philosophies say that the environment is the third teacher. So they're like an educator as well. The classroom becomes an educator for the children. And so today we're going to focus on what can we do inside our classroom to make it warm and inviting. And I have a special guest here to talk to us about that. Let's meet her. Welcome to the ECE Classroom. I have a very special guest with me today. Her name is Carla Ward. She is a podcaster extraordinaire and host of the show, the Everything ECE Podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It is so surreal being a guest rather than the host of a podcast. It's quite fun to be on the other side of the microphone.
So tell us a little bit about you.
Absolutely. So my name is Carla Ward. I am an early childhood educator in Ontario, Canada. I'm the owner and founder of Early Learning Foundations and a podcast host for the Everything ECE Podcast. I always joke that if you cut me, I bleed early childhood education. It is my calling. It is what I was put on this earth to do. And I absolutely love working with the little ones, but also really love working with early childhood educators.
Yeah, and I was so excited to be on your podcast. And, I really felt a real rapport with you, like right from the get-go. Like we were very much similar, I think, in a lot of ways. And the same with me, like I'm an educator at heart, so I feel like we have a good connection. So I think today we're going to be talking a lot about environment. And my first episode, I talked, mostly about educators. And I think this second episode, I want to talk about the classroom environment. And I think you have a lot you can share with us about how to make that classroom environment very inviting for children. And particularly, we're going to talk about nature, right? Second favorite topic.
Yes, absolutely. And Reggio Emilia has an amazing philosophy about creating the environment as the third teacher. So whether or not educators follow the Reggio philosophy, there is so much to be said about how the environment plays a role. When we look at the environment, especially for childcare, it can't just be a holding room to keep children inside. That should never be the intention. While we want our environment to be safe for all children in our program, we need to look at what does that mean? And what that means is safety is, yes, keeping danger away, but safety is also providing a sense of belonging where children can thrive. So we look at the centers within our room and think about how much time the children in our program spend, how much we as educators spend inside those four walls of the classroom. So bringing things in like nature, bringing plants inside will naturally improve the air quality of your room. Green is a natural calming color. Classroom design is something I am so passionate about because it can make or break your day. And it can make or break a child's day. From the minute a child crosses the threshold into your program, do they feel that sense of belonging? That is the number one thing we want children to believe when they walk in our room is, do I belong here? Does my educator want me here? Do I see myself in the materials? Am I represented in the books that are in the classroom? Is there something for me to do? So the environment has so many aspects, but so much of it comes down to reflection on us as educators and what we observe in our room and how we can make the classroom work for us.
I have to agree with you 100%, but I'm going to ask you the difficult question, right? Because I'm sure other people might be thinking this. Are plants safe in the classroom? Like if we add plants to the classroom, especially live plants, because we're thinking live plants, not fake ones, what are the dangers? Are there any dangers? And are there any age restrictions? And just let's get that question out to start with.
100%. And you have to ask the question, because if you don't, you're going to land up in a situation that you don't want to be in. So, and that could be, a parent or admin coming at you with that question, or worse, a child consuming a plant that could be dangerous to their health. So really, you have to know your students. If you were introducing, let me rephrase that, when you are introducing live plants to your program, you need to look at the toxicity of a plant. So spider plants are fantastic. Snake plants are fantastic. They do not have high toxicity rates. That being said, if you have a child that likes to put things in their mouths, it doesn't mean you don't bring the plants in your classroom. It means that you put those plants up high on a shelf, regardless as to whether or not a plant is considered toxic or non-toxic. We do not want children putting them in their mouths. In an infant and toddler room, I encourage putting herbs or vegetables as your indoor plants, because toddlers are notorious, and same with infants, for mouthing things. But even then, some plant leaves, so a tomato plant can be very healthy, the tomato part. The leaves are not. So again, looking at the children in your program, and then deciding, can the plants be low or should the plants be high? Great question, and such an important one to ask.
I really like the suggestion about the herbs and vegetables, if they're edible, especially like herbs, that what a great solution, because yes, you can put them up on a higher shelf, but it's fun when children get to explore them and get to feel what it's like, and I find sometimes educators too, they get a little bit worried when children are touching the plants and things. Obviously, you want to set some boundaries, but they should have the ability to explore the plants. So, what do you do about it if children are touching them and then pulling them out? Like, how do you handle that kind of thing?
Oh, it's so funny that you asked that question, because it's something I've never had to experience in terms of the children being aggressive with plants. Plants, similarly to animals, bring out this nurturing side in children that is just so beautiful. But in the same breath, there's always needs to be conversations with children. So something I always love to tell children is that plants love when we talk to them. Plants thrive. I do always add the science piece in, even if they're in toddler and preschool and they don't necessarily comprehend it. We breathe out carbon dioxide. Plants love carbon dioxide, so they take the carbon dioxide and give us back oxygen. To a toddler, that means nothing, right? But kindergartners love it. Oh, and I always have plants in my calming center, so in my book nook. And the number of times that I would find a child just having a conversation with a plant, because I told them that plants will grow more if you talk to them. So it serves as a piece of self-regulation as well, which is just incredible. And, I've always been the teacher that doesn't let children pick flowers outside. Plants belong, they need their roots, they belong in the ground. So it's kind of been our practice always to, we're gentle with plants. We use gentle hands. Oh, that's so nice that you're touching it so softly. It loves when you touch it softly. Now, have I had children that went over and, plucked a leaf? Of course. Oh, shame. The poor plant lost a leaf. And sometimes we'll plant another seed to make up for it. I'm the teacher that always had soil in her classroom because we loved plant babies, and spider plants are fantastic for this. Is the children were every day go over and inspect, do we have any plant babies? And if there were plant babies, the children were responsible for snipping and rooting, what's it called? Propagating the plant. So we always had propagation tables and soil and empty pots always going in our classroom.
So, if you wanted, let's say you didn't have any plants in your classroom now and you wanted to get started, what would you recommend would be a good strategy to get started? And what would you introduce first, and how would you do so, and how would you get the children involved?
Oh, so many great questions. So, one, plants can be expensive. Everything in 2024 is expensive. So, one way to start is have a plant campaign at your school where you ask parents to donate plant clippings. We're heading into spring. It's a beautiful time to involve families in plants. It also helps introduce families to nature. Maybe they can't contribute a plant, but they understand that this is going to be something that's going to be a focus in your classroom and a permanent fixture in there as well. But then we're going to talk to the children about it. If you see plant babies, or you have the sweet little children take their sweet little letter to a nursery and ask the lovely people at the plant nursery to donate a plant to your classroom, it can be quite profitable for your classroom. Just saying. But also, there is a great theory about naming plants. You almost introduce them as if they were class pets. So let's say you buy 3 plants for your classroom. You're not just going to stick them in your room, because the point is to connect children to nature, because you're bringing the outside into your environment. So something that I like to do, because I don't like to pick, I don't want to, be accused of picking favorites to letting certain children pick the name, is everybody gets to suggest a name for the plant. We put it in a paper bag and we pull out a name. And that's the name for plant number 1. And then we pull it out another one for plant number 2. This is also how we named our class pet. We used to have an oxalotl. And this is how our oxalotl got named Strawberry, because we were eating strawberries at lunch when I did this activity. But it's a great diplomatic strategy regardless.
That sounds like a good idea. I like the naming idea. It involves them, it makes them feel like a part of it, and gives them a sense of belonging and will be there. But also, by them naming it, I think it gives respect to the plant, right? Like I mentioned earlier, the children who will come and rip it out, yes, they'll show respect to the plant by naming it. Kind of gives it a different level of respect. So I love the naming. That's a good idea.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, to the point, if you do have a child that rips out the plant, plants are incredibly resilient. So if a plant is ripped out, involve the child who did the ripping on repotting the plant. Because when they're involved in the repotting, they're less likely to rip it out again. Not because it's a punishment, but because they understand, because we're going to talk about, we need to take care of the plant. The plant needs to be in the soil. This is where it stays. You're more likely to have success with having the plant in the classroom that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what area of the classroom would you put it into? Where would you want to put your first one?
Oh, if I only have one plant?
Let's assume we're starting out with one.
Yes, if we're starting out with one, I would highly recommend the book nook, because it is a calmer area. I had plants in every single section of my room eventually, but obviously we all start out with just one. But the book nook is where I started out, because it was a calmer area. It was less likely to get knocked over. Another suggestion, if you do have children that mouth, that has been very successful in classrooms, is doing hanging baskets. So it's not like you're putting it up on the shelf to keep it away from the children, but instead it's in a hanging basket as part of your room. So it's not this out of reach thing that children aren't allowed to touch. It just so happens to be on a higher level than the children are.
I love that. And I have to admit, in our classrooms, we don't have a lot of real plants. We have a lot of fake plants because we like the look of it. We like that calming, atmosphere that they bring to it. So I'm inspired now that I want to add some real plants in, especially now being spring. It's the perfect opportunity to bring the outside in. So I'm inspired. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally get the fear, especially because you and I live in a very city like situation where nature is not firsthand for us all the time. We go outside to deal with nature, but it's not something that naturally occurs to us indoors. So we start small. Like, I'm not saying go out and buy 100 plants. First of all, if you are not a plant person or you are not used to having plants in your classroom and you suddenly put 100 plants, in a month you're going to have 100 dead plants. Like, I can guarantee you, because one of two things will happen. You will be way too overwhelmed and you won't remember to water them, or you'll be so excited to let the children be part of it, you will kill them by overwatering, which is 100% what happened to me the first time I was like, we're doing plants in the classroom. The children and I were so excited. We watered every day because I assumed that's what was supposed to happen. Plants don't want to be watered every day. These poor things rotted and died right in front of me and the kids within like weeks. So give yourself some grace. Plants are not a natural thing for us to care for, but start slow. And you will notice there is an element of calm that comes with the plants that you just don't realize it until you bring it in. And the same with lighting. I find that bringing plants and fairy lights just transform any room easily. Whether you have big windows, small windows, changing your lighting and adding plants, night and day in terms of that feeling in your room.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Even though our plants are fake, it does add that warmness that you talked about. But I'm inspired now. I want to at least bring one thing that's real into the room, one thing that's alive. But yeah, I'm also worried about the overwatering because, well, last year we did some planting in the classroom where we planted seeds and we watched them grow, and we ended up killing them because I think it's overwatering, I'm pretty sure.
This does cost money. I don't think it's that much, but on Amazon, you can purchase something called a moisture meter. This thing is for anybody, whether you're doing it with the children or at home. This thing is a great visual because you stick it in the plant and it tells you if the soil is dry, moist, or wet. So if it's wet, you're not going to touch it. If it's moist, you know that you're going to be watering it the next day. And then if it's dry, you know. So it gives a visual representation for the children. So I always had because watering the plants was such a hot job in my classroom, if we couldn't water that day, at least the child that was in charge of planting was in charge of checking the moisture levels. So going around with this little moisture meter and sticking in all the pots and letting me know what the levels were at.
What a great tool. I absolutely love that idea of checking the moisture level. And yeah, it's an extra activity as part of taking care of the plants, right? Let's check to see if we need water today. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. But there's a decision point there. So I love that. I'm definitely going to check that out. That's a great suggestion.
Oh, it was a plant saver for sure.
So before we end off, let me know if you have any parting words that you want to share with us about introducing plants into the classroom. I think you've given us a lot of great ideas. I really love the idea of introducing it into the book area first to add that calm. I never would have thought of that. So thank you for that. But just parting words, what do you feel you want to share with the listeners about bringing plants into the room?
Is don't be afraid. Even if you want to keep it on the shelf in the beginning, I completely understand. I really do. But don't be afraid to bring live plants. And if it dies, fine. That is okay. I am a notorious plant killer and I will live with dead plants for weeks before I finally chuck them. So don't feel bad if you do not have a green thumb. It will come very easily eventually. But just take your time, go slow, and it's trial and errors. Some plants do great in one corner, but terrible in another. And you learn that by experimenting. That's the fun part about having plants in the classroom.
Yeah, and definitely aligns with my STEAM learning curriculum, where we are incorporating science into the programming and calm that plants bring. So that's wonderful. And tell all the listeners where they can find you. Tell us all the details.
Absolutely. So the best way to reach me is Instagram at EL Foundations, but also my website at elfoundations.com. Or if you just want to hear my voice, you can head over to the Everything ECE Podcast.
That's wonderful. I'm pretty sure we will do that. Thank you so much for coming on today and discussing this wonderful topic just in time for spring. And I'm so happy to have you here, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so I'm back to talk more about nature in the classroom. And I really enjoyed the segment today with Carla and her sharing her expertise on how to bring plants into the classroom to create that warm environment. It's something that I'm really passionate about. I'm the kind of person, I really love nature, but I think nature has a really important part to play in children's education. And I think bringing plants into the classroom is critical. As I mentioned in the podcast, at our centers, we do have plants in the classroom, but most of them are fake plants. And I really love the idea of bringing live plants into the room. And there is a bit of fear around that, I'll admit. You don't know which plants are safe, and as well as you're not sure how the children will react and care for the plants. But I really think it's important to get beyond the fear. And Carla really inspired me today to bring some live plants into the classrooms for multiple reasons. I think the first most important reason is that it teaches children how to care for things. We're teaching so many things in caring for plants, teaching what keeps plants alive. They need water, they need soil, they need sun, and in different quantities. And I love that we can teach children science in such an inviting way and in such a hands-on way by caring for plants. I think another one of the benefits is that plants just brings a general mindfulness to the classroom. There's something about nature that calms you down. And I think when we bring that nature inside into the classroom, it helps us to create a calm environment as well. I think about what Carla said about introducing plants into the book area as the first step. And that's really genius, actually, because our book area is usually our calm area of the room. And introducing a plant into that area just further adds to the calmness of that cozy book corner. So I think plants in the book area is definitely a must from this point onward. And we can incorporate plants. My goal is to incorporate plants into all areas of the classroom. I think we'll start little by little, but if we can incorporate live plants into the classroom, we're building skills for our children. We're teaching them about science. We're teaching them about mindfulness. We're providing opportunities for them to be calm. And we're teaching them how to care for things. And I think it's important to incorporate plants into the classroom to teach our children all these important concepts. I'm really inspired. I'm off to the nursery to grab some seeds and get started. I hope you're inspired to take action and add some live plants to your classroom. Thanks for tuning in to the ECE Classroom with Susie Beghin. For more information, you can visit our website at www.susiebeghin.com. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast so you can stay up to date on the latest episodes. Thanks for listening.